Elvis has left the building. A great story here from Al Davrin about how the saying Elvis has left the building all began. Let's have a good old listen.
Elvis has left the building.
Thank you and good night. Elvis has left the building.
A small introduction here from Joe Esposito, one of the Memphis Mafia and close friend of Elvis.
You might get a kick out of this interview. Here's the man, Al Davrin, that popularized the phrase, Elvis has left the building.
I was the band leader then, plus booking agent, director, producer, concessionaire, a few other things. Well, I had done everything on the show, but I hadn't announced. We were opening in Minneapolis on a tour. Colonel Parker comes over to me, he says, Al, this is so-and-so. Tell him about our concessions, tell him about our whole operation, our security, and he'll announce the show on this tour. So I helped the guy out. The guy announces the opening show in Minneapolis. Parker comes over. He said, get rid of him. Get him off the stage, pay him, put him on something else. I do not want him at the microphone.
And I wonder why Colonel Tom Parker didn't like the person that was doing the announcing.
I said, what's wrong? He says, Al, he doesn't fit our show. I said, but you hired him. I said, what are we doing for an announcer for the rest of the tour? He said, I have a replacement. I said, who? He says, you.
And this was a total surprise to Al Davrin. And little did he know this would become so iconic and world famous.
I said, look, I've done everything else for you, but I'm not a qualified announcer. Don't make a fool of me. Al, he says, who's the boss? I said, you're the boss. He said, you're the announcer. So I went down to the dressing room, locked the door, looked in the mirror, and I'm talking to myself. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Nothing's coming out right.
And I can imagine him doing that. What would you do if Colonel Tom Parker asked you to become the announcer of his show?
The following night, I walked on stage. I got as far as, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Elvis Presley show. As I said that, goddamn lights go out, spotlights in my eye, I can't see a damn thing. We're towards the end of the show, and Elvis is finishing his last number. I went to Colonel Parker. I said, what do I do now when he jumps off the stage? He said, just tell him that he's gone. That's it. So Elvis runs out to the limo. He's on his way out with the gang. I went to the microphone. I said, ladies and gentlemen, Elvis has left the building. Thank you and good night.
And in that moment, he made history. And to this day, people still say this phrase.
No one believed me. So they hung around in the area, and I said, don't forget those Elvis super souvenirs in living, loving color. Wonderful memento of this evening's concert, you'll long cherish. I would go on and on and on, and we outsold anybody in the world. We held the record for sales and everything else in every stadium. That's basically the story on how I became the announcer.
And I just love the way he tells this story. He tells it from the heart, and you can tell it really matters to him, and it really did affect his life in a good way.
He was a good man, a charitable man, the finest entertainer to ever live. I feel proud. I feel it was an honor to have associated with the man, with everything he stood for. When he did a charity show, every cent went to charity. Nothing was deducted for expenses. Ladies and gentlemen, Elvis has left the building. Thank you and good night.
And what a great ending to this interview, and the way he speaks about Elvis and how great and lovely and decent and compassionate and generous Elvis was to the end. Thanks a lot, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed this interview.
Elvis has left the building.
Thank you and good night. Elvis has left the building.